A terrible decision for America and for Israel. The fallout continues from the U.S. failure to veto a UN Security Council resolution for an immediate ceasefire. The failure helps Hamas, hurts the hostages, and will likely lengthen the war.
Well, defense chiefs from Israel and the U.S. met in Washington yesterday, and they remain deadlocked over Israel's plan to invade Rafah and defeat Hamas. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin pressed Israel's defense minister to make guarding the civilian population of Gaza a top priority.
Protecting Palestinian civilians from harm is both a moral necessity and a strategic imperative. In Gaza today, the number of civilian casualties is far too high, and the amount of humanitarian aid is far too low.
He also told Yoav Gallant that Israel can defeat Hamas without invading Rafah, where more than 1 million refugees from the war are holed up. Gallant insists Israel must go after Hamas and Rafah to wipe out the terror group's last military battalions and to retrieve the hostages, and he called for the U.S. to stand by their side.
The negotiation on the hostages issue and Hamas positions require us to join hands in our military and diplomatic efforts.
Israel's prime minister says the Jewish nation will invade Rafah with or without U.S. help. Benjamin Netanyahu is still fuming over America's decision not to veto Monday's UN Security Council vote, demanding a ceasefire in Gaza, but not linking it to the release of the hostages. Well-known Jewish attorney Alan Dershowitz told an Israeli channel that decision will have consequences on the ground in Israel and in the fall elections in the U.S.
It will lengthen the war. It will make it more difficult for Israel. It is a terrible decision for America. It's a terrible decision for Israel, and it will drive a great many Jewish Democrats like me away from voting for the Biden administration.
Critics say the decision strengthens Hamas in hostage negotiations after Hamas refused to give up the hostages unless Israel agrees to stop the war. The Israeli delegation walked out. On Tuesday, the New York Times published the first released hostage testimony of sexual abuse. Amit Susanna testified that her captor sexually violated her repeatedly.
This is an horrific testimony. This is a wake-up call to the world to act, to do everything, and pressure Hamas to free our hostages.
130 hostages remain in Hamas captivity, many of them women. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
It's like the world's been turned upside down, where they're condemning the wrong party. To condemn Israel in this, it makes no sense to me at all. All of the pressure should be on Hamas. They're the ones who started this. They're the ones who invaded Israel. The IDF wasn't in Gaza. Israel didn't control Gaza. Hamas controlled Gaza. And all of the suffering there is because of what Hamas is doing and has been doing, diverting all the international aid into military action, whether it's building rockets or tunnels. All of the money, and it's been millions, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars going into that. The IDF is an unusual military where they announce in advance what they're going to do, and they tell civilians to move out of the way. There was a hospital that was a shelter for Hamas fighters. They captured 650. That is an incredible number. 650 Hamas fighters trying to hide in a hospital, both underground and within the hospital complex. In that action, not a single doctor, not a single nurse, none of the medical personnel were harmed at all. That shows the care that the IDF is bringing to this. If you want to see peace in Gaza, if you want to protect the civilians of Gaza, the number one thing we need to do is to tell Hamas to surrender, to release the hostages, to lay down their arms and submit to the IDF. If they do that, there will be peace today and the civilians will be saved. If they don't do that, Israel has every right of self-defense to say, Hamas, you can't exist anymore. You have pledged to fight us again and again. You have pledged to repeat October 7 again and again and again. We can't allow that. You can't exist anymore. The international community needs to wake up to this threat and support Israel. And then please call your congressman. Please call your senator. Let them know how you feel. Now more than ever, we have to stand with Israel.